the last chapters of your book, of your current book, mostly turn into the first chapters of your next book. And
Exactly.
that was it for me too, yeah. So now I have 13 books. I just working on the draft of my 14th.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from British Columbia, Canada, and the city is Prince George. Prince George, for all those people watching us from around the world, is in the center of British Columbia, an amazing province, a little bit cool right now. It has been real winter. Last week we had as much as 42 below zero. So today it's about 12 below, but it's winter. But it's a beautiful, beautiful area. Lots of animals, lots of bush, lots of forest. I have been here for about 60 years, and it's an amazing, amazing land and amazing province. Today, a very special guest. His name is Mike Reo, and Mike is an amazing individual, an author, a public speaker, an internationally recognized author, has written a number of books, and he will be talking about that. And he travels over the world and has this amazingly story that he's going to share with us. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John.
So, first and foremost, where are you today?
Today I'm in Europe, in Hungary, next to a beautiful lake, not as big as the lakes in Canada,
No.
but one of the biggest lakes, or the biggest lake in Central Europe. So a huge lake, and it's
Wow.
lovely. It's not as wintry as it is in Canada. It's like too warm for winter, but well, we hope it comes the winter as it has to, as it should, right? But beautiful also in the nature, and I love it to be in the nature.
So, are you there on a holiday, or are you doing
No, I live here. I live here. I chose to live here. So I lived in Spain for many years. Then I moved to Malta, which is an island in the Mediterranean Sea. Very nice, but it was too small at the end. It's a very small island. And then I went to Hungary because I wanted to live on the mainland again. And it's really a very welcoming country, very nice. So
is
very
it
happy here.
is it Budapest where you are then? And
I I'm like an hour out of Budapest. I lived first in Budapest, and
right.
Budapest is amazing. But I noticed I wasn't working a lot in Budapest. I was living and enjoying, and then I noticed I have to work again. I can't just rest on my laurels. So I moved close to the lake, and here it's so lonely. I'm so bored. I work.
Yeah, and that's the objective, right? So then, just for background, I'm very familiar with Europe. I was born in Holland, and November the
Okay.
1st, 1940. So that makes me
Wow.
83 years old. 2 weeks ago, I turned 83 years young. I call it not old. And, and obviously I'm very familiar with Europe. I love Europe. I came here to Canada 60 years ago. And, when I was 23 years old and couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. But we'll talk about that a little bit. But first and foremost, about you. So this is an interesting story, kind of looking at your bio, and in between the lines is you were fired from your job in 2014.
Yeah,
Not good.
2013.
2013. Not
End
good,
of
Mike.
2013.
So now what do we do? So take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought in the beginning. Not good. But I have to tell you, it turned out to be the greatest blessing in my life. I'm so happy. I mean, I forgive my boss. I forgive the company. If I would meet my boss now, I would give her a big hug because everything I have today, the root was this being fired. And so I was there. I had savings. In Europe, we get jobless money. So I had 2 years. So I was making a plan. I had a life coaching training. So I said, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be a life coach, and I'm going to coach people, and everything will be fine. And as life sometimes goes, it didn't turn out like that, but I adopted. So, and in this, adapted in the time when I wanted to be a coach, I said, okay, let's write a book. because a coach with a book, it's always better than not having a book. And then I wrote this book, and this book was 30 days. And for half a year, nothing happened.
So
And then I got on, yeah.
writing books is very difficult. It's not easy, and a lot of people think about it, and including myself. I'm also an author, but we'll talk about yours here first. This is the book, 30 Days, extremely popular. Change your habits, change your life, and it became an international bestseller. And so we want you to share with our guests from around the world as to how did it start, and writing books is not easy. It's difficult, and then all the things around it are difficult because I have written 3. I'm working on my 4th and 5th one, and we'll talk about that as well. So I've been there, and I'm still there, and so we'll get you to talk about this one. Now, the other thing that I found interesting, a lot of things what is important, is that the title of the book is critical, and it took you some effort to come up with the name, and then all of a sudden you were washing your hands someplace in a restaurant, you were with a friend, you go downstairs, you wash your hands, and you say, click. That's what it is. 30 days.
That was amazing, really. So I did my prep. So you know how it is with this eureka effect, right? Your head is all day full with things, and you're working on them, and then you take a pause, and you get distracted, and you do nothing at all, and then it comes. And for me, it was like that. Yeah. So I had my list of probable titles and subtitles, like 20 each. But it was exactly like that. I was in one of the most beautiful restaurants in Ibiza, the Spanish island, with my best friend, eating a paella. And it was during the World Cup. It was the day of the football World Cup final, Germany against Argentina, which we won. And I go down and wash my hands, and it's like 30 days. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So I knew it's going to be 30 days, and I just had to look for the subtitle. And then this became Change Your Habits, Change Your Life, because what I learned from my coaching training and from finally putting all the wisdom in practice was that you change your life by changing your habits, right? So there it was. And then still the book was ready and it didn't sell. But then I studied marketing, and I got a feature deal of BookBub, it's called. It's like a newsletter that sends your book to 100,000, 200,000 people. And I got 40,000 free downloads in a couple of days. And that's how it all started. From then, we're talking about 2015. So at that time, when you could get a lot of free downloads on Amazon, that put you very up high in the ranking. Suddenly I was there in the ranking with Tim Ferriss and all these great guys, Tony Robbins, all the great self-development guys. And then I started suddenly selling some books. And as you know, surely as an author, we always say the last chapters of your book, of your current book, mostly turn into the first chapters of your next book. Exactly. And that was it for me too, yeah. So now I have 13 books. I just working on the draft of my 14th. And so all the other stuff like the public speaking, the coaching, everything didn't work for me so well as I would have loved it. So I adapted. And then in 2018, I said, okay, because my sales were going down, everything. And I was like, okay, now I have to make decisions. And then I decided I really want to make a living only of my books. I want to sell a lot of books. And that's the next chapter.
Okay, let me go back a little bit then here. Correct me if I'm wrong. You were born in Germany?
Germany?
Which part of Germany?
Stuttgart, where Mercedes and Porsche, where the best cars are built.
I know that, because as you know, I already know I was born in Holland, so I'm very familiar with Germany,
we are
Stuttgart,
neighbors.
Hanover, Hamburg, and all of those places, right?
Yeah.
So, you became an international writer. So you have your book obviously in English, you have it in German. So at what point, so you went to Amazon, and that was in the earliest stages of Amazon, and those for people, not too many wouldn't, but that are wondering what Amazon is all about, is Amazon really started as a book-selling organization. And then in early 2000, I believe, I had a vice president of Amazon on my podcast, actually, and he was directly involved when Amazon took a change of direction away from only books and to, from there on, the sky is the limit kind of thing. And
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos from there on in went sky high and is a multi-billionaire and all the other kind of things. But coming back to the books, it is still very active on the book side, but the key is always a number of things. What style writer are you? And not asking you right at this moment, I'm saying it to myself because that's always important. And I'm a storyteller. That's really who I am. And that's how I write my books as well. I'm a storyteller. I do the same. I'm a public speaker. I'm also, I don't read off a whole lot of things. I'm not good at that, but I'm a storyteller and I have passion. I give it all that I got, and I do the same in the books that I write. And then from there on in, the key to writing books is that obviously there is a process to writing books if you want to be successful. You have to have a good team around you, including editors. How do you prepare the book? Like in your book, it's, again, the title is critical, and that was a highlight moment in the basement there when you washing your hands and all of a sudden the light went on. That's the key for me as well. I have those kind of things. And then the other one is, what does it look like from the outside? Should it be a hardcover? Should it be a soft cover? Should it be, what should be the font style? What should be the size of the book? All those things have to be decided. And then with writing books, correct me if I'm wrong, if you have, hypothetically speaking, as an individual, if you write a book and then you're waiting for a publisher to pick it up, you send it to everybody, be ready for rejection. So, and don't take it personal, because that will become part of being a writer. The naysayers are plentiful. And so, but stay the course. And then the other part about it is that the marketing part of it is critical. As you did with 30 days, is you got it in the right place, but it may take anywhere from 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7, 8 years before you will connect with the book. Because the book, correct me if I'm wrong, your book is not based on today and tomorrow. It's based on a lifestyle. It is still as effective 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now as it was when you first started it.
That's the good thing. Yeah, it's an evergreen book, because at the end it was like, so I had the idea through my coaching experience and life experience, we learn so much. We learn that successful people have the same habits, or for example, for me it was, that's why I'm so keen on motivating people to action, to apply knowledge, because I read self-help for 30 years and didn't do anything because I didn't apply it. But when I started applying it, then miracles happened, and that's what the book is about. It's like, and that makes my style. So I write very simple, I write very conversational, very short chapters, and at the end of the chapter there's an action step. Why? Because the most important thing is to put the knowledge in practice, and that's a little bit the success of the book. And you are exactly right. So for me it was, I decided to self-publish. Of course, I got rejected from every publisher and literary agent in Spain. And I said, well, why not just put it up on Amazon and start selling, right? Because if it sells, then it doesn't matter if you get a publisher or not. And then with the rise of Amazon ads in 2018, that was my absolute breakthrough, because then I could really put my book in front of the readers. Why? Because in Amazon, you have millions, hundreds of millions of people that are already searching for books. And then with the ads, you really get the opportunity to put your book in front of the right reader. And this is a science. It's ads, but it's learnable. And you start small. I started with $5-10 a day. And then when I figured out how, in the early times, wow, every dollar I give Amazon, I get $3 back in sales. And from that moment, the only question was, how can I give more money to Amazon? I want to give them 10,000, 20,000 to get 60,000 back. And that's what I'm doing since 5 years, and it works. And now I really live only off my books. And it's amazing. So self-publishing is a huge alternative nowadays. And you get, instead of 10% of royalties, you get 60, 70, which is also nice.
So what I did, Mark, is that I've thought about writing a book, so I have a bit of an interesting background because I was born during, in 1940, the start of the Second World War, as you know, and things got pretty rough. And, and again, the interesting part is you're from Germany, I'm from Holland. Germany and Holland were involved in the war years. And I always say, that, the public on both sides were victims of suppression, dictatorship, hence all the terrible things that happened. But they were victims as well, and I always include that because very quickly we were living within 10 minutes from the border with Germany, and already within 3-4 years thereafter, we already were interacting again between people on either side of the border. Because I lived in Groningen, the province Groningen, the northeastern part. That's where I was born. So so we were liberated by the Canadian Army, and it made such an impression on me that from that point forward, I always knew I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And I tried to go when I was 17, and my parents wouldn't let me. And then I was drafted into the Dutch Air Force for 30 months, and then I finally won when I was 23. And one of the reasons that I won is because of the land of my heroes and the land of opportunities. The other part was that I was not very good academically. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. And then they said, what are we going to do with this guy? Send him to the mentally challenged school, or should we get him a career, a job? And so they sent me to a furniture factory, and I became a furniture maker. And now my grandfather was a furniture maker. My dad worked at a little lumber mill. And so my other dream was not only go to Canada, but also to start my own lumber mill. And then the other big part was that I felt I had failed in Holland, because how it goes there, no different than it would in Germany likely, is that if you grow up and at some point you get a job and you get married and you want to buy a house, it's always about, okay, where are your diplomas? Well, I didn't have any diplomas. So I felt I had failed. Then my friends that were in school with me had gone to college, university, and became very successful. And I became a laborer. And friends among each other, are sometimes very hard on each other. And and they kind of looked down on me being a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then it set me aside from most other people. So going to Canada and starting new with nothing for me was important to show to me that I could do it. So I left Holland with nothing. That's what I wanted to do. 1 suitcase, 2 sets of clothes, 3 books, and 150 Canadian dollars. And so I flew into Montreal, took the train across Canada to Vancouver. I couldn't speak English and didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. Fortunately, I went to the immigration office and there was a German fellow there and I could speak some German. I explained to him what I wanted to do. He said, go to Prince George. That's the lumber company, lumber town. It's a boom town. They're building lumber mills, plywood plants, and pulp and paper and on and on and on. And so that's where the opportunity is. So that's what I want. And when I came off the bus here, the Greyhound, in July of 1965, not 3 blocks away from, I can virtually see where I came off the bus here 60 years ago now. I looked around and there I was with my suitcase, 2 sets of clothes, 3 books, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47.
Wow.
And I was going to build a lumber mill, but I couldn't speak the language, didn't have a job, didn't know a soul. But what I did have plenty of is I had attitude. No matter what happens, I always will swear tomorrow is a better day. I always have done that from the time I was a kid to now. The other part, I have passion. Whatever I do, I give it 150%. And then the other one that I have is work ethic. No one works as hard as I do. What will follow, guaranteed, is success. And so that's what I started with. And this is not about me and the success, blah, blah, blah. I did build my mills, several of them actually, and I have a number of other companies, and success followed. But then people said to me, you got to write a book about this. And so I thought about it for 20 years, start, stop. And then about 5 years, 6 years ago, I knew if I didn't do it now, it would not happen. So I wrote this book, an autobiography. It's not easy because, especially not an autobiography, it's not you write one and then you say, I don't like it, so then you kind of throw away stuff. No, you have one chance at it. And so I wrote this one against all odds. And it's not about how successful John is, but just the opposite, going through all the ups and downs and all the things around it. And this one has been quite successful. It's also on Amazon, all the other ones. I'm going to sign a copy and send it to you in Hungary.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
And I'm glad you wrote the book, because people from now, they need these stories. Because we need your knowledge, because I have various friends from your generation, and you guys did amazing stuff, like your story. Or I have another friend, he had like 3-4 jobs at a time, and went really from taxi driver also to bank director. Like amazing. And it's important that we have these stories, because it seems like, the experience, there's nothing like experience. And there can be somebody who feels like a loser today, or who's also the friends look down on him, or like me, I was also like on a tough place, but then the story can inspire somebody who is
and that's
down.
the whole idea, right?
Yeah.
So the other challenge that I had, and I want to share with you because it puts it into perspective, I was not a very good communicator because I was self-conscious. Obviously, I had an accent and other things that, not being, from here, I was born in northeastern part of Holland, which has a dialect. It's not even High Dutch. So when I grew up, I love to speak dialect, but nobody else in Holland can understand me. And you say, those are farmers, right? And so I had to acquire the skill of speaking High Dutch. I barely got that under control. Then I went to Canada, and now I have to learn to speak English. But in any event, so by coincidence, at some point, and I already was successful in my businesses, but I didn't feel I had succeeded. I still felt I had failed. And so an ex-sister-in-law took me to an organization called Toastmasters. Now, I don't know if you have heard of Toastmasters.
Heard of them.
Yeah, very, very interesting. There's probably 450,000 people in North America, also in Europe, that are actively involved in Toastmasters. Probably 10 million that have had exposure to it. It gives you the ability to become not only good speakers, but also good listeners and thinking on your feet and giving yourself confidence. And so I went to the highest level in Toastmasters. I was there for 10 years. It became a distinguished Toastmaster, which then allowed me to become a public speaker, and I do quite a bit of that now as well. So, but it gave me confidence. Now, the other thing that happened to me, that was from 1990 to 2000. The other thing that happened to me is that in 2007, So in 1997, I walked into a store here in Prince George and I picked up a book, and the book's title was Driven to Distraction. I still don't know why I picked it up, but it was about ADHD. I said, oh my God, that's me. And the fellow that wrote the book, including another 10 or 15 other books that he wrote, Dr. Halliwell, was a podcast guest from me last week. Actually, very, very interesting discussion. And so I then knew that ADHD played a major part in my life. I bought the book, I wrote in Dutch in the book. Now I finally know who I am. So what changed my life between going to Canada and saying, I'm going to start with nothing from the ground up with this here, and then finding an answer behind creating that confidence that I needed. Toastmasters helped me there. The other part was the ADHD, which was thought to be about 8% of the population is affected by ADHD or benefited, in my views. The number, and I talked to Dr. Halliwell about that, my view always has been it's more than 20%. And he said, no, John, it's likely more than 25%. And Probably. The other part of successful CEOs, likely more than 50% of them ADHD. He said, no, John, likely 75%. So anyway, so then I call it a superpower. So then what I felt I had to do, I speak about it, I include it in presentations that I do, and I wrote a book about it, ADHD Unlocked. And written with an ADHD mind, not the other one, but this one for that purpose. So you can start it anywhere, go this way or that way, and it's always interesting. So I wrote this one.
Fantastic.
Now, the other part I wanted to just share with you, because you speak about that and it's part of your success, is that there are so many people, and you were an example of that, doing things and not being overly happy in what they are doing. And then I say, change. You did. So, but I know so many people that didn't and that are not happy with what they do. And if you're not happy with what you do, it affects everything around you. Everybody. So, and then a lot of young people that I do presentations to is that I say to them, okay, you're in school, so what will your career direction be? You say, I don't know. I said, well, check it out. You want to be a welder, you want to be a truck driver, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be an accountant, you want to be an entrepreneur. Talk to people that do those kind of jobs so you understand, get an understanding, right? And so, but the other part I felt I had to write about it. So and titles are so important, as you know, and as you discovered that day in the basement when you were washing your hands. Finding your passion, living the dream. And the fair question would be, say, hey, John, are you living the dream? I am. Every day. And even at 83, I usually get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always think I'm late. I always make my bed. And I always give, every day, I give it all that I got. And, and those are the underlying elements. So for me, attitude, passion, work ethic is a foundation. And on the basis of that, and I'm doing one more that I want to share with you because titles are so important, right? So the other part that happened to me in 2008, I nearly died because I got a case of diverticulitis. That is an infection on your, and so they
intestine,
right there. Had to do a major operation, and they took out a piece of my colon. And, so I'm okay now, but I came that close. And I knew I had to start doing more on diet and exercise. So I started to go to the gym, become more conscientious of diet and lifestyle. and then go to the gym. And I hired a trainer because I live on appointments always. So, and after doing this for about 6-7 years, somebody said to me, "Have you ever thought about competing?" I said, "Me?" Yeah. So I did. I said, it gives me a goal. So I started to take it much more serious, and then started competing here, Northern British Columbia, for bodybuilding physique. And then already was well into my 70s, 55 years and older. Most of the ones that I was competing against could have been my kids, but I came in second in bodybuilding, third in physique.
Wow.
Then I did the same provincial, came in third in physique, second in bodybuilding, which qualified me for the nationals in the Arnolds. Then obviously COVID came. Now I'm again going to the gym, and I want to again go to the Arnolds probably in 2025. I told Arnold already I'm coming. He said, "Okay, we'll take pictures together and do all of those kind of things." So, but the other part I did about it is that lifestyle is so important. Diet is so critically important. So I'm writing a book about that.
Super.
Living young, dying old, and so that's kind of gives you a bit of background. And I know I kind of feel like between you and me, we have a lot of similarities.
We have a lot in common. Yeah, I thought it all the time because I'm from southern Germany. We have an accent, as you know, too, and we are also laughed at by the guys who speak High German. And I can even tell you, when I was 19, 20 years old, and in a disco, I would meet a nice Swedish girl or whatever, and she would say to me, "Okay, you have to speak High German with me or English." I said, "Okay, let's speak English. Let's speak English." And what you discovered for the Canadians, I discovered for the Americans, because they were our liberators, and things like that. So we have so much in common. What I want to say is also, all the titles are great, and the best thing is that you are the example, and that's why you are successful, because that's you write about, and you are the example for it, and that's for me also the part of my success, because the great thing with my book 30 Days was I wrote it when I was not successful, but I was jobless, and I had a lot of time to do all the habits, and I did all the habits, and then after some time, 2 years, success came, then it went down again, it goes up again, and now it's the same. And I wrote a book about the purpose of life 2 years ago, because that was when I have reached my dream. I'm living my dream, and I think then it's a good time to share with people, how did you get there? What happened? Because for 40 years, not 40 years, but for 25 years, I didn't answer the questions. The questions like, what would you do if you can't fail? What would you do if you have all the money in the world? Because those are the ones that go for your passion. But I was too afraid to answer them. But when I finally answered them, when I was 41, when I was jobless, the answers were the same than when I was 20. Just
Absolutely.
then with 40, I had the courage, first of all, and second of all, no other option. And I said, okay, let's go for it. And that's the nice thing. So we can save with our stories the young people from many wasted years. Although I have to say, same like you, the years were not wasted. So the years between 20 and 40 was a beautiful, long
laid the foundation, right?
Exactly.
And so with me, when I left Holland and when I was 23 to go to the land, I had to prove to me, not to anybody else, to me, and start from nothing, that I could do it as well.
Yes.
And that's why. But it took the other part. It's ADHD. I had no idea what it was. I call it now a superpower, and I feel
Absolutely.
I have an obligation to write about it, talk about it, because probably more than 25% male, female are affected by it or benefit from it, and and I could not have done what I'm doing. People say to me, I have 8 or 10 companies that I have, and then I write, I podcast a lot, they say, and at 83, how do you do all these things? I say ADHD. That's the reason, So, and so what is important, Marc, is that I have no, and same as with you, I'm self-publishing. I have no illusions. It will take time. I know these books will sell 1 million copies. There is no
Yeah.
question in my mind about it. It may take 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, up to 10 years, whatever. They will sell 1 million copies. And if they don't, that is not the end of the world either. I'm simply saying that I believe in them and I will give them exposure. And you have to stay this course. Don't give up. Stay the course. And that's what I've done with all the things that I do.
It's amazing with books, because I already know now. So, for example, my last 4 books I wrote are not a commercial success yet. They're not selling many copies, but 30 Days is 10 years old. It started taking off 5 years ago. Then I have a book, it's called Love Yourself First. It's about self-esteem. It didn't sell for 2 years, 3 years now. Then it took off in Spanish. And in Spanish made me very happy, could practically live on that book. And now it's taking off in the US. So when you have 4 books, every book of this will take off. And as you say, it's just a question of time because the title are right, the story are right, maybe run some Amazon ads. And the thing is, that's the nice thing about being a writer. Every day your book can take off, and then it becomes exponential. So I sold now nearly 1 million copies of books, but 800,000 of those came in the last 2 years.
And
2,
that's
3
how
years.
it goes, right?
It's an exponential. It's exponential, yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so now the other question I have: who did you write in German?
No, I write in English because all so let's say 80% of the raw material is in English. All the personal development, let's say, best books are in English. So all the material, or videos and everything. So I write in English pretty well in my simple English, and then I get an editor, of course, freelance editor. Let the freelance editor go through it. And then the thing is, I lived 17 years in Spain, so I also speak a quite decent Spanish. So once I get the book back in English, it's fully edited, fully proofread. I publish it. Then I translate it to Spanish, and then I get a Spanish proofreader on it.
Okay.
And do the same thing again.
Okay, that's what you did. I haven't done that yet with mine, but I intend to do that. But I'm taking my time. I'm not,
Exactly.
I'm not relying on my book sales.
That's it. That's it.
I just keep working on it and do the other things that I do. And then the other amazing part is, Mark, is that I've been very active as a speaker, doing keynotes all over the place and all the other things. The only problem with that is that it takes too much time for me to do, because every time I give a presentation someplace, no matter, but they pay me, it takes 2 days of my life. I don't have the time.
Exactly.
But what became perfect for me is already before COVID. I started blogging, being more active on the regional area. Then COVID came, and then we said, what are we going to do now? Because the television station that we were working with, you couldn't go there anymore because of COVID. And so I had my apartment here, and one apartment here in Prince George. I said, let's turn it into a studio. So that's what we did. And then we started podcasting, again, mainly in the region. And then I thought, I have another apartment in Vancouver. Maybe we have to set up another studio there. And because I was running out of people, although there are a lot of interesting people here. And then we started thinking, how about virtual? Because virtual, at one point, there were lots of hiccups, and you couldn't make it work because something would stop or quit. Now you are sitting on the other side of the world, virtually, nearly, in Hungary. I'm sitting here in Prince George, British Columbia, and it is like we are sitting here together. So that has worked well for us, and I'm working with Podmatch, which is a good organization. The founder of it, he was on my podcast here a couple of weeks ago, actually, and it's a growing organization. And so now I'm pot matching people from around the world. And the interesting part about it is you and me are sitting here discussing our careers, finding the similarities,
Yeah.
At the same time, we got thousands of people watching all around the world being part of this discussion.
Fantastic. And then it's also really like when you don't know Hungary, you would think in the formerly Eastern Bloc countries, maybe internet is not so well, but Hungary has one of the best internets. Romania is known to have the fast internet in Europe. So probably if I would sit in Germany, I would have bigger trouble with my internet than here in Hungary. So it's really amazing how the world opens, how we can be online, and how also these Eastern countries progress. And the people are very nice. I really love it here.
And it becomes bigger and bigger because it's still on its infancy, in my
Hmm.
view. And so that becomes one of my most active interacting with very, very interesting individuals. It is just like me going to God knows where, to Stockholm, to Amsterdam, Paris, or whatever, or Budapest, or Bucharest, or giving a presentation. It takes me virtually a week to go there, and then maybe I have 700, 800 people there, where I'm sitting here having a discussion, not only me, but you and me together. We got tens of thousands of people watching it from outside. It is amazing.
And the traveling gets on the nerves. Yeah, when I was younger, I always wanted to travel and everything, and now it's like really like, oh, the airport is an hour away. I don't like flying very much. Maybe I have to put on a suit. I also don't like to put on suits. And then it's like, how great is it to talk like this? Or then only, I hide behind the books. I let my books do the work. But it's always great. So that's why I say yes to every podcast. I'm so glad that Scott contacted me, because it's just great to interchange, and you have brought so much to me with your story. You're inspiring to me, and I'm always a fan of, as I said, of people of your generation. You have to share your experience, and I'm glad you're doing it, because you know what tough times are. We don't know it. My generation already don't know it, because I'm from 73. I'm 50, and the younger don't know it less so, and we need to share it.
Exactly. And and the other part that I'm saying, Mark, is that that if we look around the world, and you're very close to that right now, you look at the Ukraine and with the issues there, the Middle East, and then Iran, North Korea, China to a certain extent. It's a world in trouble. And
Mhm.
so, and then I look at us here in North America, between Canada and the United States. I love Canada. It is a beautiful, beautiful country. And a lot of times I fly around here, and I do a lot of traveling for my business. And then I always sit by the window. I'm also a pilot, but I sit by the window, I look outside, it says paradise. And then I listen to the international news, in particular the United States, and saying, democratic countries are precious. And so, and I see now what is going on politically in the United States, how they're getting closer to dictatorships. And I said, my God, these guys have no idea what it means to be in a dictatorship. Go to Russia, go to North Korea, go to Iran, go to Venezuela, go to Cuba, and
Go,
then
yeah.
you'll find what what dictatorships are,
Go to
and
Hungary.
and
The
Hungary, and
Hungarians, the Hungarians, they lived in the communism for 30 years, and they also your generation, our generation, people telling me, and they like it's incredible, and that's why they have antennas. Their antennas are very fine tuned. But I have to say you also one thing and that's why I try not to watch the news too much, because for example, the news of Germany are also very bad, and I was in Germany, and it was like I loved it. I went to the Black Forest. And I
yeah,
said it probably because I went to the Black Forest, and there is the world still in order, like fairy tale. But what I noticed in the last 3 years, as soon as you go on the street and you are with people, people are wonderful. I can see it
yeah,
here in Hungary. I can see it, and it was wonderful. I was in Black Forest in a restaurant with my girlfriend, and there were French, because the Alsace, France is right around the corner, with
exactly.
Germans talking, making friends. And I said, no, the world, because sometimes you watch the news and you think, and there is something to it, the world is a powder keg, but you go on the street, in your village, in your city, and everybody you meet is nice.
Yeah.
And you say like it can't be. So that gives me hope, So I haven't lost hope yet. Yeah.
No, but I say is that, and I say I allow myself to speak on the issue of what it means if it isn't, because I was
Absolutely.
there, and
You were
if
there.
there are people that believe that you can have war, and when the war is over, things go back to normal. No, that's not the case. It may take a generation, sometimes two. And I remember it from when the war was over, seeing far too much that we should not have seen, and that I was affected by PTSD, the fear of losing my parent. My dad was drafted in April of 1940 by the Dutch army, and the last time they saw him was when Rotterdam got bombed. And for 5 years they wouldn't know if he was dead or alive. And so it was just my mom and 3 kids trying to survive. I still remember the winter of 1944-45, the hunger winter. I still can feel that now, the hunger. And the 3 kids every morning went into the railroad yards with gunny sacks and pick up anything edible and burnable. And
John, I think. Yeah. Sorry for interrupting. Yeah. Say.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I think you must speak up. And a big problem of today's world is that many of that generation are not there anymore. And it seems like young people, they are not afraid of war anymore because they haven't ever gone to a war. Like in Germany, the politicians who are very war hawks, they never went to the military. Because all the generals, all the people who went to the military and have seen war or have at least seen a little bit of, they say, talk, guys, talk, get to agreements, make peace, something, because war is and this is missing, them.
And even now at 83, from the time that I was 3.5 years old, I know the bombers overhead bombing Germany by the Allied forces. And I say the victims are on either side of the border. It's not, those people didn't want war either, but the dictatorship brought them in there. And so I still now, even 80 years later, I still feel the effects of war. So, and that's what I tell people on podcasts and speaking engagements that I have, or wherever the opportunity presents itself. Do not take things for granted, because they can change overnight, and they will never be the same again.
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
And then the other part is that every single individual must stand up and say, no, that's not what we want. But I don't see that now. They kowtow along and saying, well, it doesn't affect me and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it is just a matter of time. Like in Venezuela, when the dictatorship took over there, they went after this group, then that group, and the other group. And before people did speak up about it, they knocked at my door, hypothetically speaking, and they took part of my family, put them in a plane and booted them out over the ocean, never to be seen again. And that's the difference.
That's what Bonhoeffer said. I think it was Bonhoeffer, the priest, who said, they came for the communists and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the gypsies and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a gypsy. Then they came for the Jews and I didn't speak up because I'm not a Jew. And then came for me, and nobody spoke up because nobody was there anymore to speak up.
Exactly. So. And I used that same story, is they started knocking on your door and nobody spoke up anymore because they were all gone. And that's reality, Mark. And I have an obligation where the opportunity presents itself, at least to highlight that to a certain extent. But then at the same time, I write my books, and I preserve a sense of humor about it. But I look back, and if I look for success, and I see that in you, is that attitude, passion, work ethic, but follows is success. And then the other part about 2547 is interesting. Now, the other part I was going to ask you about, I don't know if you can see it or not. You probably can. I'm going to try to show it to you. Can you see what the price of the book is?
No, but can I guess 25.47?
You got
Yes?
it. All my books are 25.47.
Fantastic, fantastic, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. No, you're such an inspiration, and I'm really happy that we're talking, that I got a chance to talk to you. So fantastic, really. And I will take from you a little bit, first of all, attitude, work ethic. It's exactly how I also interpret myself, and the
Attitude,
inspiration,
passion, work ethic.
passion,
What will follow is success.
and the speaking up, because I'm not speaking up sometimes, and I will also take this from me to say, no, we have to speak up, because if we don't, one day it will be too late.
And the other part that I say is that Holland and Germany were at war. And I always say, because that's how I generally feel, we were all victims on either side of the border, but tolerating a dictator to take a country into that direction. I see that in Russia. I see that in Venezuela. I see that in Cuba. I see that in North Korea. And I'm afraid of it in the United States of America. And they are not far away from a dictatorship either. And so do not take it for granted. Stand up and say no, because it will happen. And once it happens quick. And before you know it, all of a sudden everything goes into a different direction. But I feel I have an obligation to speak about it. And
Yeah,
that's what I do.
absolutely. And I'm happy about, because I know the Dutch and the Germans, even until the 90s, we were very, of course, with the history. But now the Dutch and the Germans, they get along very well. We are great neighbors now, and it's fantastic. Same with the French, but a little bit better with the Dutch. And
But
that's the nice
borders
thing,
in Holland are wide open. You just go across
Yeah.
the border, and like where I was born in northeastern Holland, 10, 15 minutes away from the border, most of the cars in that city are German cars. But that already happened, Mark. When I was going to school, when I was still 10, 12 years old, we already were exchanging across the border. It was not the German people in a general sense. We were all victims of this crazy war, right?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I went to Holland. Of course, Eindhoven is 4 hours from Stuttgart. Well, in my driving style, I was going 160 because it's 600 kilometers, but I made it in 4 hours when I was young. So yeah, next door, Eindhoven, Amsterdam. Amsterdam, I took 6 hours, which was also pretty good from Stuttgart. So yeah, it's fantastic. Open borders, and the people are getting along. Like I told you, this story with the French in the restaurant in the Black Forest. That's what I love, because it gives me back hope in humanity,
Yeah, me too. Mark, it was a pleasure. I'm going to send you copies of these books. I'll get Scott to get your address. I'm going to sign them. And let's make sure we stay in touch.
Thank you very much. Absolutely.
Again,
100%.
thanks,
I
Mark.
have to come to Canada. I have friends in Canada, so I'm going to look. When will I? My girlfriend doesn't like the cold, so I have to come in summer, because she always says, "Oh, Canada is so cold." Although I like the cold, but
no, Vancouver, Victoria are beautiful, beautiful areas. Vancouver Island, very, very beautiful.
Thank you very
much. It was a pleasure. Let's make sure we stay in touch.
Thank you. Bye bye.